right? Then click on pathogen, then load the file with the BIM extension. Then click on open, click on OK, then save the private key and say yes. Then we'll save it here and we'll call it the K8s-demo, and it will be the .pkk extension. So we will save that. Right. Now I will use the putty, right? And here I will go, I come back here and check the public IP address of my instance, right? And I paste it here. But before that, I will type the EC2 instance dash user, then the public IP address. If you are using Ubuntu, you have to type here Ubuntu instead of EC2 user. But as long that we are interaction with a Linux distribution system, we should type EC2 user dash user, right? And you can copy this here and paste it here, then click on save. The next step is click on SSH, then authentication, then browse for private key and check this one that we have generated earlier. Click on open, then click on open. So if everything's work as we expected, it must connect. Right, that is nice. So now we are connected to our EC2 instance that reside in the public subnet. Right, the next step that we are going to do is to create an Ansible instance in a private subnet, right? And for that we'll use moboxterm to connect. Sorry, now we will not use that. So don't forget that you will be not able to communicate with instances that are reside in the private subnet. You are able to communicate with instances that reside in the public subnet because they are the only instances that are allowed to communicate with the internet, right? So make sure that you communicate or make an SSH connection to only to the instance that reside, that I repeat, that reside in the public subnet. So now I will go back to the instance, then launch an instance. Then here I will launch Linux, Amazon machine image. Then for the configuration, I will go with the default, right? But in the production environment, you have not to go with the default configuration because as you know, one vCPU and one memory, it is very, very low. And when you will start to build and do a lot of commands and much stuffs, then it will be very down and very slow. So in the production environment, you make sure to use a high vCPU and memory. But here we only do a lab, only a short lab with a short resource and commands. So we will go with the default configuration. So configure instance, I will launch only one instance in my VPC, and here I will choose my private subnet 1. Add storage. Add a tag, and here I will give it the tag name and the value will be Ansible server, right? And configure the security group, right? And then we'll choose an existence security group, and it will be for preview launch an instance. Choose the key pair that we have to use to communicate with this EC2 instance, right? but we are not going to communicate with this publicly. This key pair will be used in the instance that are in the VPC that want to communicate with the EC2 instance that reside in the private subnet. So this key pair will be used by this instance to communicate with this instance, right? Because they reside in the same network, right? Then yes, demo, then launch an instance. View instance, right? I have to make sure that the communication or the connection between my patient communicate instance, sorry, and the Ansible server are good. So for that, I must use a ping test, and to allow the ping test to success, we have to configure something. We have to add something to our security group, right? And allow the ECMP protocol or the port to be allowed on this EC2 instance, right? So I will go to my Ansible server, right? And by default, it does not have a public IP address because they reside in the private subnet, right? And then I will go down here, go security, right? And here to my security group, then I will edit the inbound roles, means the inbound traffic. What are the ports that are open on my EC2 instance? The security groups are like the firewall of, they are firewall in real life, firewall of my EC2 instance. And there is another thing is network access control list. It is the firewall for the subnet, because we have to use both of them, the network access control list and the security group, right, to avoid the DDoS attack. Now we will go to the edit the inbound roles, and I will add a new role, and this role is for all SCMP and all SCMP, right? And here I will allow them only from the instance that are in this VPC, right? Then I will save roles. Now if I come back to my EC2 instance, to my Ansible server, right? And then copy this address, and then do a ping, then paste the private IP address, and the pings work. Nice. So now I am able to communicate with my EC2 instance that reside in the private subnet, right? So now if I try, for example, to do an SSH, then type the EC2-user, then the private IP address, right? And type enter and type yes. It permission denied. And why that? Because I must to have the key pair that I have downloaded before, that is here, right? This one, to communicate to my EC2 instance, right? But this key pair, I don't have it here anywhere. I have it on on my Windows machine. So how can I copy this one to my instance that is in the public subnet, and this instance will use it to communicate with the instance in the private subnet, right? So for that, we'll use SCCP, is secure copy, right? That will use an SSH. So from my Windows machine, I will be able to copy the file and paste it and paste